I actually have stories which sound scarier when I tell them. But this is the tale of the most terrified I have been in my life. The situation was scarier to me than any other story I could tell. This happened a bit over a decade ago, in the summer of 2006. First, a description of the house. We had a long, quarter-mile or so driveway, living on almost 4 acres. We could see our neighbors easily, but were not close at all. When you get to the front door, it was a pair of double doors with most of the door being glass, about a 4-inch or maybe 6-inch wooden frame around all 4 sides, with a big window in each door, plus narrow side windows to either side of the door, also starting about 4-inch to 6-inch up and going to the same height as the windows in the door. Opening the doors, there are stairs going to the second floor right in front of you. Well, right in front of the left side door. To the right was a smallish formal living room. The stairs up were floating planks of wood, so you could see through them to the other side, into the informal family room. From the family room, immediately under the stairs to the second floor, was the stairs down into the basement. At the bottom of those stairs was a bedroom I used as my office. No need to describe the rest of the house for this tale, though there was some oddities and spookiness that had happened in various other places inside. At this point, my wife and I were certain the house was haunted. At least 2, probably 3, and maybe even 4 different ghosts, based on feel and personality, were there. They were not a constant presence, and it felt like 2 of them liked us both and were generally benign or sometimes even beneficial. One seemed to like me and dislike my wife, and another was the opposite, and seemed to like her and dislike me. The 2 nice ones may have been just one who had different moods, or may have been the other 2, but were just sometimes okay with both of us, or whatever it was. Neither my wife nor I ever seemed to feel more than 2 at a time, which is why we weren't sure how many there were, and we never saw any of them, only felt them and heard them. Again, leading to us not being certain if it was 2, 3, or 4 presences. Anyway, back to the story. Up until now, nothing really bad had happened, and even this story isn't going to be all that bad. Sorry for the spoiler. But we had random items disappear and or reappear, heard noises, and mostly just could feel them at certain times and in certain places. If we hadn't talked to each other about it, I am sure we would have individually both passed it off as just our minds playing tricks on us. But once we talked about it, it became clear that neither of us was hallucinating. Or if we were, it was shared hallucinations. Okay, sorry, off track again. Back to the story. This evening, my wife was out of town, visiting friends about 90 minutes away, but gone for the night, going to stay the night at their place. I am in my office working, and I hear a loud rumbling. My first guess is a delivery truck just pulled up my driveway, sounded like a big diesel engine. I started saving what I was working on and getting ready to go upstairs, and the noise got louder. By the time I was walking to the stairs up to the main level, it sounded like a semi, and I mean a big and loud semi, was in my driveway, which has happened for some deliveries in the past, but I wasn't expecting anything like that, so it seemed exceedingly odd. As I started up the stairs, it got even louder, to the point I was honestly considering if a helicopter might be landing in my yard and why that would happen. The walls were vibrating slightly, pictures bouncing against the walls, not wildly, but enough that it was an audible and visible addition to the rumbling. At this point, I was almost halfway up the steps. I started to move faster and look back over my shoulder through the floating steps above me and out the window and the door. My view wasn't perfect because of the angle and the steps blocking a portion of it, but I saw black shoes, black or dark brown socks, and brown work pants. My mind immediately registered, oh, it's the UPS guy. What the heck is he driving? That is so loud. And I turned back forward and dashed up the rest of the steps. As I got to the top and was about to turn around the guardrail to move to the front door, 2 things hit me. First, I should not have been able to see shoes. There was 4-inch or 6-inch of wood at the base of the door, and at least another inch or 3 from the bottom of the door to the top of my front porch. Second, as soon as that hit me, I literally felt as the sound exploded into silence. I know that sounds weird to say in that way, but that is the only way I can describe it. It was like a pressure wave went through me without moving me, and it was eerily quiet. Like no buzzing appliances, no bugs outside, no critters of any kind, no noise from the fairly busy roads half a mile away, nothing. And the electricity, including all lights, went off in that same instant. So I was left with an ominous silence, and in the dark, with only a bit of twilight from stars and a sliver of a moon lit up the entrance to the house. I found my cell phone in my hand, not sure when I had pulled it out of my pocket, and I called my wife, freaked out. I was moving, out the very same front door I had just seen someone outside of. Looking back, I wonder why I didn't run to the back door. The house was dark, but I knew the way, and it wouldn't have been difficult to navigate. But I was just filled with a primal dread. It was coming from within as well as without. It felt like I was walking through a cloud of fear. So I ran to the door, threw it open, and went to check the breaker panel outside the house. It was all turned on, no breakers flipped, the power shouldn't be off, but it was. My wife answered halfway down the drive, and I managed to tell her what had happened by the time I reached the end. I kept her on the phone. I don't remember what either of us said. As I walked for about 10 miles, I wanted to be far away from the house and never even thought of going into the garage to get in my car. When I had time to collect myself, about 10 miles later, I walked back to the house. First thing I noticed was that it was lit up. Every light in the house was on. Even though I hadn't had any of the upstairs lights on, besides the porch light and the family room light before the power had gone out, and the front door was shut and locked, even though I had left it open. No neighbors would have gone in, and even if they had, there was no way they could have locked up behind themselves. Luckily, I had my keys in my pocket. I unlocked the door and went inside. All felt normal, maybe even a bit emptier than normal. I went down to my computer, and it had indeed been restarted and warned me about not shutting down properly, just as if the power had been out. Luckily, I had saved before getting up all those hours ago, and I shakily went back to work. I was freaked out for a couple of weeks, but nothing else odd happened for a while. Not even the normal, friendly oddness. A month or so later, the house was broken into and vandalized, and a lot of our stuff was stolen. Over the course of the next few months, with everything that had been going on, but mainly due to the vandalism/burglary, my wife and I moved to a new place. It has been sold at least twice since then. I haven't kept close tabs on it for a while. No idea if the new owners had any supernatural experiences or not. I did drive by it about 5 years back and noticed a lot of fixing up had been done to the place. Anyway, nothing else to say about it really. It doesn't sound all that scary to tell. And like I said, I have experienced a few other things in my life that are probably much scarier as stories. But nothing comes close to that night, for the sheer amount of terror I felt. I was woken up in the middle of the night by my house doorbell. It was one of those apartment doorbells that were crazily loud, the kind that you could hear the upstairs apartments when it rang. This ring made me nearly fall out of bed, it was that loud, and it only stops ringing if you go up to it and end the call. So I stumble across my room in the dark in my tired state to see that it's 2 a.m. I think it's odd, but I check the camera feed and see there's nothing there, so just go back to bed and end up falling back to sleep. 20 minutes later, the bell rings again. This time it seems louder than before. So again, run across the room to answer the call to stop the ringing throughout the floor. And again, there's nothing outside apart from something rustling around outside. The doorbell sometimes goes off on its own, but never more than once. At this point, my heartbeat is getting higher than I would like to admit. End the call and get a drink. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rings again. Go to answer the call, and none of the buttons are working. I'm freaking out at this point and frantically pushing buttons to stop the noise, waking my neighbors. And then the camera feed suddenly turns on, and there's just a face staring into the camera. I proceed to nearly shit myself. The sound then turns on, and all I can hear is this person panting. Doesn't say anything at all. This went on for about a minute, and then I hear the building door unlock and the camera feed go back. Thank you, broken doorbell. 10 minutes pass by and I'm starting to calm down after realizing the person probably just pressed the wrong apartment number on the building. And then the knocking on my door starts, and some mumbling that I can't make out. I silently walk closer to the door to try to better hear what they're saying. Then they start banging harder. They weren't letting up at all. I grab a knife from the kitchen when I hear them shout "Wai Mai," which means food delivery in Chinese. I nearly shit myself for a food delivery. I open the door half-heartedly to see a fairly oldish food delivery driver stood in the hallway with a bag of food. He looks really confused to why I look so tired/angry, and he got even more confused when I told him I didn't order anything. He looks down at the receipt and sees that he's got the wrong apartment number, and it's actually my next-door neighbor. He then looks up, looks at me, and then walks off like it was nothing, without saying a word, no apology or anything. When he got to the neighbor's door, he saw that I was still stood there looking shocked. And he just said, "No problem." So I responded with "what the fuck," and with a few phrases in Chinese, mainly about him waking me up at 2 a.m. and his attitude. Once he dropped the food off and confirmed the delivery on his app, he came over and apologized, as he was probably going to get in trouble for being so late for the delivery, which I do feel sorry for him for. Doesn't sound so scary when typing it out, but at the time, it was terrifying. I have a few stories from Wai Mai drivers, including one just opening my door to let himself into my house instead of just knocking. So 2 years ago, my parents bought a house in Vermont and were selling my childhood home to move to said house. I went to college very close by, and my friends want to hang out that weekend, so I decided to sleep in my creepily staged house with giant "for sale" sign and lawn. The rents were in VT, so I was home alone. I'd always been skittish and paranoid and generally unable to sleep in that house by myself. But being the badass college student that I was, that night I hung out with my friends, got a little drunk, and went home to sink into blissful oblivion. 3 a.m. rolls around, and I am powerfully jolted from deep slumber by my house's alarm system, wailing at decibels not suited for human ears. Being 19, female, and highly reputable, I feel for the first time in my life a terror so pure and overpowering that my entire body starts shaking uncontrollably. I rip off the covers and run to my bedroom door, lock it, run back to my bed, and grab my bedside lamp. Here I am, the badass college student, finally okay being home alone, crying to myself as I crouch in the corner behind my bed, all while clutching a lamp above my head as I bore holes into the bedroom door with my eyes. 5 minutes pass. 10 minutes pass. 15 minutes pass. I should note at this time that our house was notorious with local police for accidentally setting off our alarm system for one reason or another. I'm trying to listen for any telltale noises in the house of burglars, serial killers, desperate house squatters, or rapists, but the banshee-like alarm system from hell is making it an impossible task. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the alarm system cuts. It stops. Complete silence. I am crapping myself in fear. Is this a good sign or a bad one? Does that mean the police are coming? Or did the bad guys figure out how to disable the ear bleed-inducing screeches? 5 more minutes pass and I see car headlights on the street outside my bedroom window. I don't know what to make of this. Suddenly, I get mad. Really, really mad. I have a lamp. Any burglar should be rightfully terrified of me if I go wandering out into the house, especially after that godforsaken alarm. So I take my lamp and creep out into the house. Bedrooms are on the 2nd floor. Through the front windows, I see flashlights bobbing around outside my house in the front lawn. I proceed slowly down the stairs and into the dark front hall, and turn to go into the kitchen. I don't want to turn on any lights and alert people of exactly where I am, so I stay in the dark. I am standing there, lamp raised, fear and anger on my face, in my terrifying Hello Kitty short pajamas, when suddenly there's a knock on the glass back door directly adjacent to me. I jump, scream, and drop my beloved lamp. I stare in horror at the man on my back porch, who is pointing a flashlight at me and now at himself, and he's a police officer. So I let him and his partner in. They ask me who I am, and I break down into a huge sobbing mess. Let them know I'm the college student daughter, blah blah blah. Please tell me I'm not going to get raped tonight. One of the officers stays with me and comforts me while the other searches the house. No sign of any kind of forced entry, nobody here. Do they want me to stay around outside for a while, just so I feel better? Now I'm feeling pretty stupid. No, officers, no, it's fine. I let them outside, thank them, triple-check the locks on every window and door, then go back to my room. Lamp must be damned. Our REAP lamp. My dad calls me soon after, freaking out because the alarm company called him about 297-739-834 times before he actually woke up. He stays on the phone with me until it starts to get light outside, and then I finally go to sleep. Turns out there was a faulty wire in the alarm setup on my front door. It just randomly decided to fail when I was home alone. Still one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. And I really like that lamp. TLDR, as a 19-year-old girl home alone with her parents hours away, my house alarm system went off at 3 a.m. and scared me shitless. RIP lamp. My wife and I recently moved out of a home that I can only describe as fucked up. The house caused so much anger and hatred. Whatever entity resides in the home is either menacing or pure evil. Even as soon as my wife moved into the home when she was a child, she told me a story of when her and her little brother were playing one night in his room. They were playing with a leapfrog-type device. She described in detail about how she was showing her brother how to use it, and it began to act strange. Strange sounds came out of it, and then a man's voice began screaming from it. She said it was saying something about a list, something about making mistakes, screaming and cursing until she turned it off. So let's fast forward some. I met my wife a few years ago, and needless to say, she got knocked up. Haha, wear a condom, kids. Anyway, we decided that, since it was the logical thing to do, I would move in with her. Sweet, no problem. At the time, I worked the night shift, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. This will come up later. After a few weeks of moving in, I noticed something strange about the house. The upstairs where we lived seemed menacing in a way. Like someone was in the other room waiting for you. At first, I brushed it off as just being nervous. New house, new life kind of thing. I also thought it was from the pretty much steady insomnia work was causing me. As time went on, I began noticing more and more. Whenever the house should have been dead silent, things would happen. Footsteps up and down the hallways, knocks on doors, and sometimes I would swear I heard whispers. Being an avid believer in spirits, I wasn't particularly afraid, until things started getting dark. One morning as I was lying in bed, watching Netflix and hoping to fall asleep, I heard a rustling from the closet. It was just light enough in the room that you could make everything out. I saw nothing, and thought maybe it was just the fan. Something moved out of the corner of my eye, and as I looked at the closet, a dark ball moved from the closet to the bedroom door. It was about the size of a softball and moved about as fast as a person could to the door. Later into the week, my wife had gotten into the bad habit of sleeping with the closet light on. I blame myself for that one, should have kept my mouth shut. So we're lying there talking about baby stuff, women, and I noticed the curtain that covered the closet opening move. My wife was curled into me facing my chest, and I was staring at the closet. As I kept watching, I saw what I can only describe as a tiny mist-like figure. Not like white mist, but slightly darker than the rest of the background, move out from the closet. It was maybe 3 feet tall and vanished as quick as it appeared. As soon as I began telling my wife what had happened, she had a sharp pinch on her back. She didn't cry out or scream. She calmly turned around and shouted, "Get the fuck out and leave us the fuck alone." Too bad it didn't work. Now let's fast forward. You're probably wondering, what else happened? Well, small stuff here and there for a while. Footsteps were regular. And I know some of you are probably saying, "It's the house settling, jackass." I would agree, but not only did the footsteps stretch out the entire length of the 20-foot hallway, they sometimes were fast. And the knocks on the doors were very rhythmic. You know, like when you knock on a friend's door when they're home or something. So let's get to scary stuff. After this recent Christmas, things began to spark up to a new level. One day, I was sitting on my computer and my wife came into the room asking me what I needed from the store. The computer room was directly across from the bathroom. Our daughter's door was to the immediate left of that, and the stairs were to the right. I began telling my wife what I wanted when she looked out the door and turned, well, ghost white. Her eyes got big and her mouth dropped. She slowly turned toward me. I just saw a man walk into Elaine's room. She begins describing what it looked like. It was about 6 feet tall, black and only slightly translucent. While she's describing this, I walk out into the hallway and go into my daughter's room. Have you ever walked into a freezer, like the ones Walmart stocks ice cream in? That immediate chill is what I felt when I walked in there. There was nothing, of course. But as soon as we began walking out, a set of metal bed frames we had laying against the wall for over a year, I might add, slid down and fell to the floor. My wife turned back into the room and told whatever it was to get the fuck out of our home. But it didn't, of course. Come January, things really picked up before we moved out. The power got knocked out during a sudden storm, and we were left in the dark for a night. My wife at this point wanted nothing to do with the home at this point, and wanted to stay at her dad's. So we began packing her things for the night. I went downstairs and got my daughter loaded up in the car, and as I started walking back in, my wife shot out of the door, nearly in tears. I asked her what was wrong, and she only said simply, "I don't want to talk. Close the door, let's go." The upstairs to the home is pitch fucking black, even on the brightest day due to the layout. So when the power's off during a overcast, you might as well be underground. My wife was in our room gathering her makeup and things with only a flashlight. As she was loading things into her bag, she heard someone walk from the stairs, down the hallway, and right up against her back. She assumed it was me, but when she turned around, she saw nothing but black. Not like darkness black. Imagine someone holding a black sheet in front of you. Something like that. Even on our moving out day, things were happening upstairs. It was the worst I've personally ever felt it. Just dread and sorrow. My wife once again had something walk up on her and heard knocks on the bedroom door while she was packing. We've gone back a few times to get a thing or two since we left in February. Every time it's terrifying walking up the stairs, but I feel as if I should end this on a high note. We moved into a brand new home, and it is a completely different experience here. It has helped our relationship and has taken a huge burden off of us. I lived in a house that seemed to be haunted by doppelgangers. Every event that happened never involved some mysterious figure, but a known person being in a place where they should not have been. Here are a few examples. I was a teenager at the time, and I was instant messaging my girlfriend at the time with my webcam turned on. I had the viewer up so that I could see myself in the webcam. Behind me, there was the stairs leading up, left of camera view, and the entrance to the living room, right of camera view. My younger sister would typically fall asleep every night on the couch in front of the TV and make her way up to bed in the middle of the night. At one point in my webcam view, I saw my sister leave the living room and go up the stairs. The thing that struck me as odd was that I didn't hear anything. It was an older Victorian house, so the wooden floor and stairs were loud as fuck. Without saying anything to my girlfriend, I got up and looked into the living room, and there was my sister passed out on the couch. I sat back down and asked my girlfriend if she had seen anything in my camera. She said, "Yeah, I just saw your sister go upstairs." My family was all getting ready to go somewhere. I was sitting in the car with my mom, and we were waiting on my sister, who was still in the house. After a bit, she comes out and gets in the car and just looks at me like, "What the fuck?" I ask her what's wrong, and she says that just before she walked out of the house, she thought I was still inside, so she yelled up the stairs, "Zero Bevius, we're leaving." And apparently I yelled back, "Okay, I'll be down in a minute." Edit some more examples since many people have asked. I did put some of these in a response lower, but I'll add them here for visibility. My mom woke up to someone tapping her foot, and she said someone was standing at the end of her bed, who faded out after a couple seconds. She said it looked like me. I had an encounter where I woke up and felt like someone was under my covers laying up against me. When I said something, my blanket visibly deflated and I no longer felt anything. I include this with doppelgangers because though I didn't see what I felt under the blanket, it laid like my girlfriend would have laid against me. When I was 22, I was in the military and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It still took like a year after the diagnosis to separate from the military, but I went home on leave for the holidays about a month after the diagnosis. Anyone that has insulin-dependent diabetes typically carries around some sort of kit. Mine is black zip-up pouch, and it has a glucometer, insulin pen, needles, and alcohol pads. Right after I left home to head back from leave, my mom texts me to ask if I'm missing my diabetic kit. I look, and I'm not. She sends me a picture of a diabetic kit and asks if I know it. I've never seen this kit before in my life. Apparently, my sister went into her bedroom and discovered it outside of her window, propped up like someone had set it there. Oh, also, her bedroom is on the second floor. Nobody else we know has diabetes.